Hi everyone, welcome to the 12th episode of PAINTCULIAR with me, the newest Miniakin. I swear I better last. This episode is a collaboration with Catherine from Dollightful. I'm so excited! No, because she's the one who inspired me to start doll customizing, so this is like a very big deal for me. A milestone even. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Catherine. Really means a lot. Anyway, Catherine's works look like this. And my works look like this. As you can see, our styles are very different. If anything, we're like polar opposites. Since our styles juxtapose, oh my god, big word, juxtapose, I'm a professor. Since our styles juxtapose each other, I thought it'd be fun to do a style swap. A few months ago, I messaged Catherine on Instagram asking if she'd be up to do this, and not only she responded, she also said yes. Yay for me. Now, I've never really done a cute Lolita girl doll before, not based on my own idea at least. I mean, I made Ruby, but she's an established character, so I don't really want to count her. Here's the concept art. Look at me having a concept art. Well, I had to make it to make sure Dollightful's doll and mine match each other. We're actually making a duo, not just doing a simple style swap. When I showed people this concept, they were all like, her face is ugly, and I was like, shut up, it's just a concept. The finished doll will not look exactly like her. One more thing, throughout this episode, I will not make any questionable jokes and or statements. I'm gonna be on my best behavior, just in case Dollightful's viewers come over to watch this. But only for this episode. Alright, let's start the customization. Because we're making a human character, I'm gonna use a Raven Queen's body, but for the head, I'm picking Gigi Grant's. To be honest, I don't really like Ever After High Girl heads, they look like balloons. Submerge Gigi's head in boiling water for about 30 seconds or so to soften the final. I remove the head already and then I scrape off the remaining stubble with a flat metal tool. Extract them through the neck hole with tweezers. Nice and clean. Great. Gigi's head feels a lot more squishy than other heads I've dealt with before for some reason. Now it's Raven Queen's turn to have her head removed. Let's get rid of the factory paint using 100% pure acetone. Clean the head with some wet wipes. This will also clean off the excess acetone. I heard Monster High heads are wobbly on Ever After High body, so let's find out if that's true. Yeah, this pairing is no exception. Raven's head works well on Gigi's body though. But I really like the way this looks, maybe I should just get over it? Or not, I think I can fix this. I cut a small piece of white knit fabric, white so it will not stain the doll, knit so the fabric doesn't fray. And then I shove it into the gap between the neck and the neck hole until it feels snug. And the head isn't wobbly anymore. It's not an elegant solution, but it fixes the problem. This Raven Queen's body is a second hand, and when I shake it, it makes a sound. I think something is broken on the inside. I relate to that. Anyway, this is what we're going to work with. Here I'm mixing some paint to color match the head with the body. I'm gonna apply the paint using an airbrush. Before we airbrush the head, let's protect the body with masking tape and cling wrap. It took 4 layers of paint, and after that, I gave the head 3 initial sprays of MSC, and look how good this looks. We can start blushing the face with soft pastels. Now, I don't have the basic understanding of makeup, so I'm just gonna keep the blushing minimal. I mean, I don't want her to end up looking like a creepy clown or a decaying zombie. I spray the face again with Mr. Super Clear and sketch the outline of the eyes using watercolor pencils. The reason why I'm going with Gigi is because not only her face sculpt is so cute, it also has defined eye molds, which makes things easier for me to do the face up. Still on the same layer, using a small angled brush, I color the lips and map out the eyebrows. I know in the concept she's supposed to have red lipstick on, but I don't think that will suit her very well, so I'm giving her saturated lip tint with soft pastel instead. Another spray of MSC, then I start filling out the scleras and irises. I base the irises with yellow, but I'm not giving her glowing yellow werewolf eyes. I want her to have those very light brown eyes, they're almost golden. I think they're called ember eyes, so I think yellow is a good base for that eye color. From now on, it's just about building up the colors, shading the eyes, adding dimensions and details here and there, etc. Here I'm drawing on the eyebrow hairs, and as usual, I darken the outer tips. If you're wondering why I'm doing the face up with the head already attached to the body, which is not something I usually do, it's because when I was putting my mini-me's head back to its body, the face cracked, and that kinda traumatized me. Using a black watercolor pencil, I darken the eye lines and pupils. People suggest to make the pupils the darker shade of the iris color, but I like black pupils better. Let's build up the colors even more. I use watercolor pencils exclusively to do the face-ups, and back then I could get a face done with just 5 layers of MSC, but these days I need like 8 layers or so, I don't know why. You know what they say, if you want to make a female character, just give them eyelashes. That's the problem, I've only done eyelashes a few times. So this part, hatching the lashes was pretty nerve-wracking for me. Did I do it well? I think the top lashes are pretty neat. Time for the part that makes the face come alive, adding the dots of eye shines. But for some reason I got nervous, so I did it off camera. What do you think? I love the face up so much. I think she's the prettiest girl doll I've done so far. Now we can give the face the final spray of MSC. Be generous with the final spray because that's what's gonna hold the whole face together. Moving on to the hair, let's start by marking where the parts would be with a marker. For the hair itself, I already prepared yarn wefts in this auburn, burgundy color. I honestly don't know the difference between those two colors. What matters is that the color is beautiful. And if you thought I would reroute, you were expecting too much. Anyway, let's start by gluing the wefts for the parts. You know, the wefts that are glued in the opposite direction and then get flipped. Here I'm doing the bangs first. Now we can start filling the bangs. I also trim it as I go. Here I'm making the part lay down using a wet toothbrush. This ain't a bang, it's a boom! What if her hair is just like this, just the bangs and nothing else? Now we can start gluing the rest of the hair, starting with the parts, of course, the one that flushes with the bangs and the middle part down to the nape. Tame the hair down. We're done with one side, now let's repeat the whole process for the other side. After we're done gluing the hair, we can make the hair lay even flatter by pressing it down with a heated metal tool. You see that pink mini hair straightener? I've had it since the very first doll I've done and it still works to this day. Quite legendary, I'd say. And I got it for only $1. With a heated metal chopstick, I curl in the bangs. What do you think? Does it look better? I curl in and trim the side bangs as well. Here I'm trying to do some French braids, but I couldn't do it. I duct tape her down so she doesn't move around. I retie the pigtails with elastics to make sure they're tight. I forgot to mention that the theme we agreed on is steampunk, so gear charms are essentials. I got a pair with a large hole like this. With a string, I'm gonna insert them to the pigtails to make them the hair ties. I actually stole this idea from an unused concept of Dollightful. The Gigi's head for a steampunk doll, the gear hair ties. I hope I'm not stealing too much from Catherine. From what I know, this kind of elastic doesn't last long, so I'm gonna cut them loose and replace them with bindings of matching thread. I want to give the pigtails some texture by curling them. Curling yarn wefts really isn't hard. Just heat up a metal chopstick, wrap a section of hair around it, leave it there for a few seconds, lift off the chopstick, and you got yourself a ringlet. I trim off the ends and separate the curls with just my fingers to make the hair appear voluminous. Would you look at this? I am so glad with the way everything turned out so far. I mean, you still can tell I made her, you just don't think I would make something like this, you know? It's time to make the clothes. I'm gonna use white cotton fabric, this lightweight brown pleather I've had since forever. I based the concept of this material actually. And for the details, instead of boring gold stripes, I'm gonna change them to laces. I got a bunch here. I didn't know laces were that cheap, they're like a few cents per meter. Let's make the shirt first. Here's the pattern and start by sewing the darts. After that, I'm gonna sew some lace in the center. Got a few options over here. I'm gonna go with this one. Sew the shoulders together. For the sleeve pieces, they're double the length of the armhole curvature so we can turn them into puff sleeves. As you can see, I made 2 rows of basting stitch. Ignore the bottom stitches for now. Anyway, tie off one end. On the other end, separate the thread and you'll end up with 4 strands. Pull 2 strands from the same side to gather the fabric and match it with the armhole curvature. Once the length is right, tie off the threads and attach the sleeves. You can gather fabric with a single row of basting stitch, but the result won't be as tidy, so I recommend using 2 rows. Now we can gather the bottom parts to match the rest of the sleeves. It should look like this. Here I'm trimming off the extra seam allowance. If some of the basting stitch is still showing, you can get rid of it using a seam ripper. Just do it carefully, you don't want to accidentally make a hole. I sew a folded strip of fabric around the neckline to make a neckband. Then I sew a strip of lace on top of the neckband. For the cuffs, I made these trapezoids out of the platter material. I made them a bit bigger than the sleeves because initially I wanted some parts to jut out, but it didn't work out in the end. Anyway, I'm gonna attach some lace for details. Now we can sew the cuffs to the sleeves with the right side of the cuffs facing the wrong side of the shirt. Trim the excess. Now when you flip the cuffs, all the right sides are showing. Finally, we can sew the side seams with the cuffs already being put in the right position, of course. Clean the edges and turn the shirt right side out. It was difficult, but I did it. Looking good so far, but some parts of the lace got ruined. I thought lace couldn't fray. No wonder they're cheap. I have to fix this later. Let's hem the bottom and the opening tabs. I already installed snaps in the back, and to fix the lace, I'm just gonna glue a new strip on top of the old one. I cut a thin strip out of thicker and stiffer platter and sew it to the neckband to make the necklace. For the pendant, I'm gonna sew the smallest gear charm I have in the middle. I actually have a gear charm with a heart-shaped hole like in my concept, but it's too big. Here's the finished shirt looks like. The sleeves aren't that puffy and the cuffs aren't that wide, but I still very much like it. Bald-headed blondie locks here is standing in as a mannequin. I intentionally made the shirt a crop top to reduce the bulk. Moving on to the corset and skirt portion, here's the pattern for the corset. Now my sewing machine really doesn't like this platter material, so for this I opt to hand sewing. I want to add an extra panel on the front piece of the corset, but I don't want it to be just slapped on. I tried sewing it with gold thread, but nope, looks ugly, so scrap that. Let's try again. Glue the panel to the front piece, but not the whole surface, just enough to set it in position. Then I cut pieces of the stiff platter using pinking shears to get that zigzag edge. After that, I glue those pieces on both sides of the panel, sandwiching them between the panel and the front piece of the corset. Alright, this works. Now we can sew the back pieces to the front piece. When I hand sew, I always do back stitch for both look and strength. We can start working on the skirt. I cut a long strip of fabric. It's triple the length of the bottom part of the corset, and I'm gonna sew lace to it. I used my sewing machine to sew the lace. Technically, I was sewing on the lace, so it was fine. Time to make the pleats. I'm not even gonna try to explain it because it's confusing to put into words. It made sense when I was actually doing it though. If you do everything right, the skirts and the corset's length should match and can be sewn together, so let's do that. It looks good, but the skirt only wants to spring upwards. Ironing this material doesn't sound like a good idea, so I fold the skirt down and top stitch along the waistline. That helped, not as much as I wanted to, but I don't want to push it, so let's move on by sewing the back seam, making sure the doll can fit through. Turn the skirt right side out and hem the opening gap for a finished look. I use hooks and eyes for the closure. Now we can glue on gold half beads to look like buttons. Looks pretty good. For the underskirt, I made a loop of lace and another loop of 5-layer white tulle fabric, joined them together with a waistband. Insert the elastic. This doesn't look too good. I think it might be too thick. Let's do a simpler approach. I made another loop of lace and do a running stitch along the edge to make a drawstring with embroidery thread. This looks much better. For the socks, I'm gonna make them out of this white rib knit material. I already folded and ironed to prepare it for hemming, but before we do that, I'm gonna put elastic lace on top so we can sew everything in one go. Since we're sewing stretchy material, I'm using a stretch stitch. It's number 3 on my machine. A regular zigzag stitch would work as well. Also use a ballpoint needle. Now this is a must, so you won't skip any stitches. As you can see, the fabric and lace still stretch with no problem after being sewn together. Anyway, let's trim off the excess fabric. I cut it into 2 pieces and hem the bottom parts, one thigh high and one calf high. I'm making tubes instead of socks because this material is pretty thick, so I'm afraid the shoes won't fit. Here's what the socks/leg warmers look like. They look decent. Another accessory I made was a headband, but I don't like it. Nothing's wrong with it, it's just giving too much maid vibes, which is not what I'm going for. Also, I think I just love the hair a little too much. I don't want it to be distracted by any more accessories. For the shoes, I'm just gonna repaint this pair because they match my concept pretty well. I'm gonna paint them brown first. I gave them 2 layers. Then I paint the upper parts with copper paint. I went with 3 layers because I want the metallic paint to really pop. Painted the details like the eyelets and shoelaces. Brush on 3 protective coats of watered down matte varnish. And the shoes are done. I think they look super cool and they just scream steampunk. Just because she's the brain of the duo doesn't mean she can fight, so I'm giving her a weapon. A meteor hammer inspired by Gogo Yubari from Kill Bill. I mean, who doesn't like cute girls with weapons? It's peak character design, I think. Anyway, for the base, I'm using this wooden ball. It's already in the perfect size. Here I'm attaching an eye screw to it. And for the spikes, I was going to use those little nail art studs, but I couldn't find them anywhere here. So I tried to drill a bunch of holes and stick toothpicks into them. But it looks hideous, so let's throw that away. Then I remember I got beads that look like this. I used my rotary tool to cut it just to get the tip. I did it off camera because the beads were small. It was pretty scary to cut them. Anyway, clean up the excess plastic with some scissors. Sand the base to make it nice and flat. And make a bunch of them. This really shouldn't be this complicated. Now we can glue them to the wooden ball. The Uhu glue doesn't seem to hold the spikes that well, so I'm gonna reglue them using hot glue. Are you normal or do you have a love-hate relationship with hot glue? It looks really cute like this, doesn't it? But it's not the right color, so let's paint it. Then I give it 3 coats of gloss varnish without watering it down to bring out the sparkle. Attach the chain. And the meteor hammer is done! And finally, we can call it a doll! Catherine put a lot of effort on the body modification for her doll, so I work extra hard on the hair and outfit for mine because I don't want this doll to be a walk in the park for me. I didn't think I would love her as much as I do. The face up, the hair, the outfit, everything about her exceeded my expectations. I'm just so glad with the way she turned out. This was such a fun challenge for me. I had a lot of fun making her. In fact, I think I should do this more often considering the amount of girl dolls I have in my stock box. So what do you guys think of Cassandra the Bounty Hunter? Do you like her? Do you not like her? Did I emulate Dollightful style well enough? Let me know in the comments down below. Catherine was kind enough to edit our dolls' pictures, and would you look at them? Don't they look so great together? You can just imagine them going on adventure side by side. Anyway, go watch Strongman Clarence's video. Who am I kidding? You most likely came here from there. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to. See you in the next one. Bye.